Hello there. How's everyone doing? CJ running the AC today. Welcome to the South. Yeah, it got to 70 down here. Go right now at 61. So it's, like I say in the South, we go from air conditioner to heater and heater to air conditioner in one day. So we're waiting for that Arctic blast. Should be about what? Greenland now. It should swing back around middle of next week and hit us again. So up and down the temperature goes. Hello, Hiram and Tom's Outdoors. Hello, how are y'all doing today? And Kat Yusa, hello. 133 Rip. Who called this meeting? Sounds like a safety, doesn't it? I've worked at industrial things where you come in and suddenly we got a safety meeting. Okay, John screwed up again, didn't he? Oh, he was riding around on the forklift, standing up on top, doing his, Washington crossing the Delaware trick again, wasn't he? Yeah. Outdoor Rashawn, hello. Mr. Johnny, hello. Sparrow, hello. Good evening, Clyde. Thomas, independent thinker. Finally, the ice melted. Good. Kaylee, hello to Germany. Ronald, hello. Yeah, with this cold snap, it came in, dropped down. We got down in the teens where I am. And during the days, it'd warm up to the 30s for a couple of days and high 30s. And then at night, it was dropping back down in the low 20s or the teens. So you had to keep all the water dripping. And but so far, did good. Good evening, Justin. And Ronald, hello. And so now I'm set up to go do the hot tent solo, but I'm going to wait till it cools off just a little. It would be kind of funny going out there and doing it at 70 degrees, wouldn't it? So I'm going to just hang loose. I'm hoping it'll cool back down. It will cool. I know it will cool back down a couple of days. But I'll go out and do an overnighter. I've done got that place picked out, set up how I'm going to do it. Of course, you got to make sure everything is in place so that when you go and you come back, everything's good. Rock Lick, hello. Alan Rice, hello. Rob Rock, hello. Yeah, I saw where North Alabama got down in single digits. That's pretty impressive. The coldest I've ever seen it here in lower Alabama was the winter of 77, 78, and it got down to 4. It was in, I want to say, mid to early January. And it got down to 4 degrees here with 75% humidity. We had people from Alaska that were complaining that it was so cool. Hello, Tom. Yeah, it got down to single digits over there. But now you got to remember, was it this year? I believe it was this year. Remember when that cold came in, just sat down in Texas and sat there for like a week or so or more, and they had single digits all over Texas and stuff. So it's that cold vortex of air, just it's kind of like a figure skater. It's supposed to be sitting on the very top of the world, sitting there doing like that. But what it's doing is doing this, and it's oscillating around the planet. Well, when it comes around to this side, it sucks warm air up from the other. So right now, as it's gone north, it's sucked this 70-degree weather up into Alabama, which a couple of days ago, the high was in the 30s. Now it's at 70, just because it moved that way and it brought it up, so making everything kind of cattywampus. Bears in the house. Good evening, sir. Yeah, we whenever you're trying to set up a winter camp, one of the things I wanted to share with y'all tonight, talking about winter camps, is, like we talked about the 5 W's, but let's go a little more in depth and let's talk about some of the very basics. Even something frozen can help keep you warm, because what it is you want dead airspace around you. So if you have to build a snow shelter or an emergency shelter or something like that, and I learned this firsthand in the past where it had been wet and rainy, because usually in my South, you have wet and then it turns cold because it's that cold air coming down and compressing the moisture flowing up from the Gulf, and then suddenly it's kind of like lake effect, but we don't turn to snow. But everything's wet, and then the temperature plummets. Well, I have taken wet leaves and made a debris hut with wet leaves. And you think, oh man, wet leaves. Wet leaves stick together better. And since they stick together better, there's less air circulating. So a hut made out of wet leaves, where it's not touching you, but it's all the way around you, is actually warmer than dry leaves, because that water helps hold less air coming through, and etc. They kind of stick together better. And if it freezes, even better, because now it's a sheet of ice and you really don't get a lot of airflow coming around it. So if you can minimize the airflow, whatever it is, use it to block it. Good evening, Diane and Clyde. How y'all doing? Rob Rock, good evening and Merry Christmas. North Carolina, -20 wind. Oh yeah, it hurt up there. Robert, good evening, Florida. Mr. Kennedy, good evening, sir. Hope to get to see you this coming spring. Okay, I am going to do the video probably to post on Saturday. My spring gathering. I'm going to step out on a ledge here and err on the side of hoping it's going to be usually when we have a wet, cold winter, it just turns off like a switch early March. So I'm betting that March 22nd, that's a Thursday, through March 26th of 2023 is when I'm going to do my gathering. Now I'm going to double check my little calendar right quick. But that's when I'm planning on doing my gathering. Same place, Geneva State Forest, down here in South Alabama. Yes, it will be Thursday, the 23rd through the 26th of March is my game plan to do it and to set up and have my spring camp. John Kennedy, yeah, empty the privies. I will talk to the Mr. Driggers, who runs the forest, and make sure that everything's pumped and cleaned and ready to go for us. And hopefully it'll work out real well. But we're going to be doing, I haven't talked to anybody about doing classes or whatever at it, but I will probably will be doing a class on one or two of those days. Probably Saturday, I'll do 2 or 3 little classes, and we'll talk about stuff. So I'll announce that when it gets closer, just to see what the interest is and etc. And if anybody else wants to do some little class or whatever, we'll work it out and let it happen. But those of you that don't know, I put on a gathering in Lower Alabama at a place called Geneva State Forest. It is the largest state forest in the state, 7,000 plus acres, and it abuts up against the national forest, which is Conecuh National Forest, which some people may pronounce it Conecuh, but how it's spelled, but we call it Conecuh. And that's 70,000 acres, I think. And it's a big lake there, and I put on an event down there every year, and we'll be camping out. You can, if you've got a state permit, you can fish, you can canoe, you can bring whatever, knock yourself out. They don't allow motors in the lake, so you got to paddle. But if you got a kayak or something like that, or you just want to get out there and enjoy it, go ahead, bring a float, if the water's warm enough. And yes, there are some alligators. We have not seen one, but we have heard one. But don't, you're not allowed swimming, which I believe the reason they don't allow swimming is they don't put a lifeguard down there. So they put a sign up telling you those alligators don't get in there, just to make sure you don't go skinny dipping because of it. But I've only heard one alligator down there, and that's when they're in the mating season. They do that big rumble that you can hear for miles. Me and Steve and Kingsbury were sitting down there, and we heard that, and it was really impressive to hear it. Edgar, good evening. Mopar, hello. Independent Thinker, Farmers Almanac says bad weather. Well, got to rain on the parade. Dadgummit. How bad, though, is the question. Outdoors with Sean. Saw a gator on the backside. Yeah, I'm sure in those upper areas, yeah, would be. Good evening, John. Um, it's good places up in there for them. Typically, alligators are lazy. Okay, they alligators, sharks, turtles have survived all the major extinctions, and there's one major reason for that. All three of them can go for up to a year without eating. They can just slow down the metabolism so much that they can go without eating for up to a year, you know. And so a gator up in those areas, he can just sit there with his mouth open in the water waiting for something to swim close enough to get a snap. That inside of their mouth is nice and white. And a lot of times you get fish and things to come in there. They'll think it's something else and snap, he's done. And turtles and stuff like that. They love turtles. And so, yeah, usually you don't. And I've seen some big gators now, guys. I mean, not there, other places. I've seen 17, 18 footers before that they're 4 foot across at the shoulders. You know, it's a dinosaur. But even then, you know, they pretty much want to leave you alone as long as you leave them alone. Don't get around the water's edge doing splashy, splashy, splashy. That triggers a response. That's like rolling a ball of tinfoil in front of a cat. That's a aggression response. They just have to go for it. They can't help it. But as far as most of them will just, the minute they see you, they'll turn and go the other way and leave you alone as long as you leave them alone. But haven't, like I said, up in them back areas, yeah, I expect to be gators there. But I have not seen any at the camping area. Too much human activity. And they don't like that. You know, it spooks them too much. Gustav 03, hello to Northwest Ohio. Yeah, bad weather. If it's raining, we're training. I heard you, Johnny. Clyde, a wild gator and a tame gator is the same thing. They act the same. He wants to eat. That's it. The thing that shocks people is whenever you see an alligator get up on all fours and run like a dog. They can, and they can hit speeds like a German Shepherd or something. If they wanted to get up on all fours and run down something, they can, but they prefer not to. The whole thing with those large reptiles like that is they don't recharge fast because of their metabolism. So they can put on a sudden burst of energy and they're incredibly powerful. But once they're tired, which they have a relatively short duration, once they're tired, it'll take hours, even days for them to recharge, so to speak. And I've read stories of in the Seminole Wars of the 1830s of an officer that had gone into the Everglades that they were pursuing, trying to get the Seminoles out of the Everglades. And he talked about watching these boys, 5 and 6 years old, hunting alligators, 8 and 10 foot long alligators. And they would take a chicken or something that they were going to eat anyway and kill it and let it drip blood. And they would go out on a limb over the water and, you know, squeeze chicken, let blood until they'd get a gator to come up. And when the gator would come up, they'd jump off the limb onto his back and wrap around his head. And then they'd stick their fingers into his nose and he'd drown. He'd go to spinning like a top, but within like 2 or 3 minutes, not even that, probably a minute, he'd drown. And then these kids would roll him over on the back, get up on him and take a pole and pole him, he'd float. And they'd float him back home. You know, you think 5, 6 year old kid killing a 10-foot alligator for fun. Different times, different way, but you know, they're a big bad predator, but they got a lot of weaknesses too. And one of their major weaknesses is they need a lot of air and they need a lot of space. They don't like being crowded up much. Now you'll see pictures of during mating season and stuff. There'll be just wads of them. In fact, there's a video somewhere on YouTube called 300 Alligators in a Creek. And it was a guy who was fishing and he come around the thing. And as far as you can see, just one alligator on top of the other. It was like he counted 300 and they were just laying on top of each other. Some sort of mating thing. they all got together and they just stacked up like cordwood. Otherwise, they don't really like to be around each other that much. They'll bite each other too. So the simple rule of thumb is if you got to cross water and you think there may be gators, get to the bank, edge of the bank, just sit down and start watching the surface of the water. He's got to come up and breathe. He can lay on the bottom for up to an hour, sleeping, so to speak. But if he's active or anything like that and not being, pushed or whatever, he'll bob up out every 10 minutes and you'll see him stick his nose up and he'll stay surface for 90 seconds and then he'll go back. He'll come up, he'll clear his lungs, he'll breathe, get his oxygen count back up, and then he'll sink back down. And so you look and see if there's anything on surface before you go swimming across. When I was a kid, we didn't have hardly any gators down here. They've moved back in my lifetime to where now I don't dive in a river and go straight across. I take the time to take a look first, find me a shallow place I can go through. And most time, if they're going to mess with us, they want deep water. We're too big to mess with, just, grab. Deep water, they can grab us and take us down and do the death spin and drown you. Shallow water, they don't want to do it because you might get a hold of the bottom and be able to fight them. And so they know that. And so they'll just kind of back off. And every time I've heard of somebody being taken by a gator, it was in deep water. Not that somebody was A, messing with one and it bit them, or he B, went and jumped in the water right at the shallow edge and one was laying there and wait and spooked it and bit him. But one where someone was killed or attacked, a real aggression attack, is almost always in deep water. It's where they can grab and dive with you. And so they don't like to mess with you in shallow. $133. Hell, I was going to ask you about mosquitoes and start talking about gators. You see me in the mountains. All that ain't too bad. It really ain't. Yep. I have only seen one croc in the wild, and that was actually in northern Florida. I have seen tons of gators, so to speak, but crocodiles, the only time I've ever seen one, because that narrow snoot of them was down in Florida. I haven't seen any up here at all. Kearney talking about being down there in them gators and snakes. I had an uncle who loved to go down there in them bayous and used to go down in Florida in the Everglades and stuff. He just loved it. And he loved to go fishing. And he loved them backwater holes. I mean, the swampier, the spookier, the better. And he had this teacup chihuahua. That was his gator dog. Because during the day when he was driving the boat, he'd be up on top of his pack. He had a pack basket. He'd be in there asleep. But when it got, if he was going to camp, he'd find him a sandbar somewhere or some dry hunk of dirt. And he'd get up there and just throw him a pad down. He'd lay down on the ground. And that dog would walk patrol all night. That dog was scared of everything. And so that dog will wake you up. Don't worry if there's a snake, if there's a possum, if there's a gator. That dog will lose his ever-loving mind. Trust me, you're not going to sleep through it. And so that was his watchtower, was that little bitty dog walking around him. He I've seen pictures that he took of him sitting there, drinking coffee, and 15 feet that way is about a 16-foot gator. He just pulled up on a sandbar next to him, built a fire, and wasn't scared of him at all. Good evening, Stephen. Yep, Herbert. It was North Carolina 10 degrees last weekend, and it's 70 this weekend. Same way, Enjoy it. It'll shift back. This is what I call a wet, cold winter, where we're going to have rain and then we're going to have intense cold. And it'll last a few days and then move out. And like this, they're predicting rain for May tomorrow. It's reading it warms up. Down here, whenever we have winter, if it warms up above 50, it's going to rain. And then when it rains, the temperature will quickly drop on the backside. I have seen it. Oh, it's been 10, 12 years ago now. But I have seen it where it was 80, right? It was 79 to 80 degrees. And 4 hours later, it was 29 where that cold front rolled in. That temperature, 50-degree drop. So. Team Lotus Blackie, speaking of scary stuff, how do you not get creeped out camping in the deep woods at night? The sounds are frightful. The sounds are your buddy, because you will get acclimated to the sound, the cacophony of it. And anything bad coming through, it'll change the tune. And it's like, wait a minute, it's like, best I can give you is just music like a symphony or something. And you're listening to it, and it has this certain pitch and timbre and everything else. And you'll have a big predator come in or something just moving through, and the insects will interrupt, and you'll hear these blank spots. And you can tell there's something right over there because it's quiet over there. It was noisy 5 minutes ago. Now it's quiet, and now it's over there. Now it's over there. And you can actually tell things are moving around. The night shift is, they kind of ignore possums and coons and deer. But if it's a predator or something like a bear size or something our size, definitely man, they react to it. And you get to where you can just listen to it and learn. And yeah, I don't like to put anybody on the spot and make them feel uncomfortable. But yeah, it can be spooky out there. There's been more than once I've sat there and hugged a tree going, okay, now Blackie, you need to calm down, because you will invent things in your mind because that sound don't sound right, and it seems awful big, and it seems to be snarling and growling and everything. And just, what is that? And I have encountered rabid dogs. I have encountered big animals that I couldn't immediately identify what it was. I told the story about the time that I was in a hammock, had a U.S. Army blanket over me, and something bit me in the gut and slapped me at my head, my feet, like the imagine that you had was something did this and grabbed your head and feet and then bit you in the intestines area. And I flipped out of the hammock, and from asleep to this, and you fought your way out of the hammock. When I hit and I rolled up, there was nothing there, which was right at dawn. And so I managed to get up against a tree, grab my single shot shotgun, ran my hand under my shirt, came up, had blood on my hand. I didn't imagine this. It turned out to be a turkey flying down from the roost, and that was his claws hitting me in the gut and his wings slapping me. But in my head, whoo, baby, I mean, you done run through the list of usual subjects. Mountain lion, no, he'd go for the neck, and he wouldn't have backed off. Bear, he'd have broke me on the head, and he wouldn't have disappeared. Bobcat, kind of like mountain lion. Wolf, again, he'd still be here. He wouldn't disappear. And you start running through all the lists, and then you get into things like Bigfoot and stuff like that, trying to get, well, what about this? What about that? No, couldn't be that. And I've done run out of usual subjects. I couldn't come up with what would attack me that was big enough to reach 6 feet at the same time. And yet, I mean, in one bite, pierce into me. And it was only after everything calmed down, the light got bright enough, I could investigate, that I finally figured out it was a turkey flying down off of his roost, and he hit me. But man, your mind will make, woo, it can be a little spooky at times. Outdoors run. The smallest of critters make the loudest noise at night. An armadillo will sound like an 18-wheeler coming. I mean, it's amazing how much noise, especially when he's running. Man, you thinking, bear, bobcat, mountain lion, what? Robo-possum. It'll really wake you up. And then I've talked about another time, I was in a hammock, and a big gator was cutting through the woods, where he was in a big pond over here and the river's that way, and he just walked down the dirt road. And so it was thundering and lightning and storming, and I kind of, something in the flash woke me up, you know, when the lightning went off and I saw something coming toward my hammock. And it was a big gator. And he was just walking down the road going to the other place. You know, I'm a quarter mile from that pond. And he was just cutting through, use the road. So you just don't know what you're going to encounter. There was a guy that set up several years ago whenever game cams were really just starting to kind of kick off. And he's down here in Florida. And he set up a game cam on a road just going through the woods. And he explained what it was is that they had cut this road in to survey. And this was not they just cut the trees out of the way. It's just a rough road, you know. It isn't a prepared road like you'd come in with a bulldozer made. It's just a path. But it was big enough for something like a Jeep or something to get through there. And for some sort of surveying and thing. And so the guy would hike in and put his game cameras up. And he was seeing mountain lion, he was seeing bobcat, he was seeing bear, and, you know, suddenly here's this alligator walking on all fours, just walk right through the middle of the frame. And he said, I'm fully a mile from any standing water. And here was an alligator cutting through the woods. So you just don't know. You just got to keep a hold of yourself and realize you are the biggest, baddest predator here. You know, they naturally are more afraid of you than you are of them. And sometimes you got to act it out. You got to just, you know, throw that head back and beller a rebel yell at the top of your lungs and spook everything in the damn woods and realize, uh-oh, there's a human up here. Yeah. It will usually get their attention. Hello, Frontier Survival. Edgar, a bobcat, all cats prefer to bite at the back of the neck. They go for the spinal column to penetrate in there and break the spinal column. So a cat wants to attack you from the back. It wants you to run. Bobcats, mountain lion, etc. They don't like to face a target head on and physically fight it. They want to make it run from them. And so as my grandfather taught me, he said, if you'll never see a cat unless you're just extremely lucky. You know, walking through the woods, you're never going to look up and go, oh, there's a mountain lion. You'll never see it. They're so aware. They're going to know. Same thing as bobcat, that you'll never see them. But if you're going down a path and you say, oh, and you turn around and there's a bobcat or a mountain lion, you were the target. You just turned around. It was coming up on you. They will fall in behind you, come in quiet, and when they get to the right distance, they'll put on that burst of speed, and they'll be on the back, and they go for the back of the neck. That's the reason all cats do that. That's the reason those guys in India that got tigers will put Halloween masks on the back of their heads, facing that way, so it confuses the tiger which way is forward. See? And I have been lucky enough hanging in a hammock, doing a nature scout, to be able to see a fully grown mountain lion pass 45 yards from me, something like that, through planted pines. It came up dead silent and cut across. And I have turned around and seen a bobcat once. That was in a swamp. And then once I did turn around, she got all hissy and spitty, and she was mad. And what I didn't know, they were kittens. There's a fallen tree, and I had come up this path and had come up to this fallen tree. And I was just looking at it. It was very impressive for the size of it. And what I didn't realize is she had a den underneath it. And when this tree had fell, her kittens are kind of exposed. And so as I'm walking around, she'd circled around behind me. And I suddenly reversed direction. I turned around. There she was. And suddenly she's slapping the ground. She's hissing. She's spitting. And I just, okay. And went to backing up. I ain't going to turn. Don't turn and don't run, because she will catch you. And I went to backing away. And as I backed up and back where I could see underneath that stump, I saw a kitten. And I realized what she was doing. She was just trying to get rid of me. But for the most part, you know, they're going to leave you alone. But cats go for the back of the neck. Dogs, canines, go for the throat. They want to cut off your windpipe. Whereas the cats want to paralyze you. They want to cut the nerves in the back, get your spinal column. So that's a dead giveaway too when you find something that's been killed. If it's the throat, it's usually a canine. If it's the back of the neck, it's usually a cat. And bears, stuff like that, you'll see all the claw marks. They get a hold of it and they will just beat it down in sheer brute strength. Their speed with their claws, and etc. So that's kind of a giveaway of what it is. And I had a landowner a couple of years ago that was losing calves for his cows, and someone said to bring the pictures up and show me. And when he showed me the pictures, I told him that's definitely a cat, because you could see where the canine was piercing in. It's what it was doing is attacking the calves from the back. And it would find a calf standing there asleep, next to its mama. And it would just lunge up and get a hold of it and kill it. And then let go. And by now, mama is getting upset. Well, now he can, after killing the calf, it can turn its attention to the mama to drive the mama off to come back and feed on the calf. And they have a pattern once you figure out what they're doing. I'm from the north. Can't rebel yell. What's a stern Yankee talking to work to deter predators? Oh, just be a New Yorker that somebody cuts you off in traffic. That'll work just fine. Make a human noise. Hello, Snapper. How you doing? Woo, squirrels eat you up, boy. So will coons. I had a girlfriend. Well, that's not fair. We dated a couple times, and she had a pet raccoon. And it was a big roly-poly butterball. Thought it was a cat. Been raised since it was a baby, and etc. And then somebody made the mistake, not me, but somebody made the mistake of grabbing hold of that thing, not realizing it was a pet, and thought it got in the house through the dog door and grabbed it. And that thing got mad, boy. You see you think them trash pandas are just teddy bears. Wait till you see one eat up a dog. It's amazing how fast they can turn into a buzzsaw. Longbow banjo. Yeah, the cougars will empty a wallet. Yeah. Jared, have you done much trapping, Blake? The trapping that I did when I was young was for food. At that time, the price of hides was in the toilet. That was in the late 70s, early 80s. And so I set up, conibears and things like that. And I was going for coons, possums, meat, So most of my stuff was done for meat. And I did a little bit there for a couple of years. But I'm in no way what you call any kind of authority on trapping. Dan Lutz was the master at that. I was not. But I learned more listening to Dan. And I still have Dan's 6-hour class that he gave that time we videotaped it. I've still got that 6-hour tape, and I've watched it a couple times, where he points out, and he's just pointing out things I never would have thought of how to attract and get game and stuff like that. One through three. No, I did not date Ellie Main. Her name was Donna. Yeah, banjo music. Yeah, we are in the South. It's amazing. Okay, banjo music. Name the movie, Mr. Rich. What does that movie? What name that movie? Because everybody remembers dueling banjos, but tell me what the movie was in that made it famous with Burt Reynolds and them. Yeah, independent coons and things, and that's the thing. You always got to be concerned. You usually do not see coons out in the daylight. They're night shift, except when they got babies. Sometimes they'll come out. Y'all are correct. Deliverance. Excuse me. They'll come out looking for extra food. So during that time, yeah. But any other time, if you see a coon out in daylight, be very suspicious of it, especially if it's not acting right. It may have a head wound. It might have got hit by a car, or it may be some other illness. So any animal that's acting completely out of character like that, avoid it if you can. Hello, Steve. Good evening. Tiny Titan, hello. John, I have not seen that, to be honest, about renting and selling. I know about selling traps and people buying them. And when the price of hides actually came back to something of quality, I knew a lot of guys that were getting into trapping to do that. And whenever the coyotes showed up down here, which were not here when I was a boy, they moved in the 80s. And suddenly people found out you could get money for coyote hides when they were eating your chickens out of your chicken house. For those of you that don't live in the part of the country that raises this stuff, a chicken house will be like 100 feet long, 120 feet long, and maybe 30 feet wide, and will have thousands and thousands of chickens. They start them out with little bitty chicks, and they get them up to where they're about, that big, so many weeks old, and they put them in them chicken houses. And, of course, you're just going to have chickens die of natural whatever. They got smothered, or they just didn't do well, or whatever. And so they will go through, and every day as you're checking the feed and the water, and they'll pull the dead ones out. And many people just used to have a dead pile. They would put them out back, something like that. Well, that attracted all the predators. And when the coyotes got here and the foxes, they figured out, if you get in one of them dang chicken houses, there's a lot of food in there. And so them guys were getting all upset where you'd get one coyote would figure out how to get in to a chicken house, and he'd bring the whole pack next time. I knew a guy that he had, I think it was 1,500 chickens in a chicken house, and they went to another city because his sister-in-law, his wife's sister, was having a baby, and they went over for the big moment for her, and he came back and found like 300 or 400 dead chickens where they had got in the chicken house, just went on a killing spree because they just think it's free food, and people began to truly hate coyote because of that, not only because they'd eat your pets and etc., but that was a livelihood. And so once that happened with trapping, you start seeing people wanting to trap, wanting to come out with rifles and thin them out, etc. It becomes a problem then when it starts hitting the checkbook. Yeah, Jared, it varies. And I'll tell you the thing that shocked me the most talking to Dan Lutz about that. He said, what is the biggest money-making animal around? And, of course, I'm thinking, I don't know, probably a mink or something. No. He said, it's an animal you'd never think of. And so I thought quite a bit, and I said, okay, I give. What is it? He said, skunk. I said, a skunk hide is worth that? He said, no. It's the glands in the skunk that produce the scent. He said he used to carry the hypodermic to extract it. He said you'd find one dead that didn't spray. So I'd get out and I'd take that stuff because you'd sell it to the propane industry. And that's what they make the smell of propane. Propane by itself has no smell. So to make it where you can smell it, they use skunk essence to refine it and make that distinctly propane smell we know when we smell propane leaking. And it was like $200 and something an ounce to sell it to them. He said, yeah, I'd save the stuff up. And then when I got a full, 4-ounce bottle, I'd contact him and sell that thing at $200 and something an ounce. That was, like $800, $900 for that bottle. Yeah, skunks. I started looking at skunks a whole lot differently after that. Oh yeah, skunks get in there into them chicken houses, and they've changed a lot over the years, but you know, they used to take the chicken stuff out of the chicken house. It was a rotational process. They came in and they took all the chickens to the slaughterhouse. Then they would open the front door and open the back door and take a bucket loader, and they'd push all the poop out of the house, clean out the house, and then that chicken poop would be given to a fertilizer company who would take it and make it into a sprayable liquid fertilizer, and they'd run up and down all your fields and spray chicken poop. And you could tell when somebody was spraying chicken poop because there'd be this smell on the wind. You couldn't mistake, you know, that somebody a half mile that way, like, oh gosh, they're doing chicken poop. And now everything around you smells like chicken poop for 3 or 4 days. That scent dissipates. Oh, the beauties of the South. You remember that old Clorox Country Fresh scent? Well, I'm here to tell you, Country Fresh scent, it smells like chicken poop, cow poop, pig sties. That Country Fresh scent did not smell like any country I'd been around. Metal Reaper, hello. Yeah, hog rot. The big cats just bite the breast meat off of them. Same if they ever get pigeons or anything like that, or squab, small chickens, they'll just bite the chest meat out of them, and that's all they want to mess with. That's the big payday, so grab another one, you know. Oh yeah, Garen, the wood pulp smell. Yeah, paper mills. When I was a little boy, there was a paper mill down in Florida, almost to Panama City, a good hour and 15 minutes away from me. And there were certain nights when the wind was coming off the Gulf, it'd be about 11 or 12 at night. That smell of that paper plant would make it all the way up to me. Is that air current coming up off the water would finally get to us, and you could just smell that paper plant. Just, oh, it was horrible. But, you know, metal, yes, polecats and skunks are the same thing, just a different regional name for it. Let's see, there's polecat, skunk, tuxedo pooper, make you cry. Oh, I've heard several names for skunk. Pea weasel, that's not the right word, but P-I, you get it. Weasel. I've heard that one before. So Perry, Florida, Buckeye Sawmill, you're probably right. But back to what we were talking about earlier about camping out and being out in the woods and in the wild, about the smells and the sounds and everything after you become acclimated to it. And it's no different than anywhere else. I'll tell you where I feel the most uncomfortable, and that's in a big city, because it has its own rhyme and reason of its own and the sounds of it. And although I've been through big cities my whole life, you know, I drove truck, did everything else, but I feel the most uneasy in a big city as opposed to I do in a swamp or something like that, because nature around me, it's kind of predictable, and what it's got its own motivation, and it's kind of honest in a lot of ways. You know what it's got in mind and why. It's either trying to drive you off because you're in near the babies or something, or it's trying to intimidate you because it don't want you here, or it's just trying to go about its life and you got in the way. I mean, that's the bottom line. So it's nothing personal, so to speak. It's just you happen to be there and listening to the sounds. And I love winter camps. I really, really do. They hurt me now because of my age and arthritis and everything else, but I do love them. And I was talking to my blood brother Davey Hobbs a few days ago. He came in right around Christmas, and we got to go to lunch together. And me, him, and Bear's daughter went to lunch, and we were talking about it. I was remembering a really cold winter camp. We went to the island, and what that was is on the P River in Alabama above Elba, there was a place that we called Dead River. And what it was is it made a big horseshoe bend of the river, and at high tide in that horseshoe was an island that came up from ground level and went up like 25 feet, 30 feet height from the mean ground level. And there was a path to get up on top of that island. And at high water, it was an island. At low water, it'd be just a little trickle in front of it with the main river channel behind it. We called it Dead River because of the Dead River channel. And me and David Hobbs and two other people were down there. And it was so cold that night that you could not lay on the ground, even though we had sleeping pads and we had really good sleeping bags. The cold, because you're right there by the river, so it's automatically 10 degrees colder. Humidity, the cold of the ground, that even in that really good sleeping bag on a half-inch thick pad, it was like laying on a slab of ice. And so there were four of us. We just decided to sleep in shifts. And so what we did was I would take this other guy's sleeping pad, put it underneath mine to double, and then take his sleeping bag and open it up and lay on top of it with my sleeping bag to try to get as much insulation between me and the ground. And then I would get 2 hours of sleep, and then we'd hot bunk rotate. He would rotate in. And we did that all night. The two that are up keep the fire going. And as luck would have it, me and David were on fire watch. And I remember looking up at this unbelievably beautiful sky, not a lot of light pollution. You could just see forever, just billions of stars. And a shooting star was coming down right over us, which is a meteorite. And it was so quiet and so still, we could hear the shooting star, that sound as that meteor was coming through the atmosphere. That's how quiet it was. We could actually hear it. And that was one of those special moments that you're just never going to reproduce again. Had to be there, that place, that time, but it was so cold and the air was so still that sound could travel like that, and you could really tell what you were listening to. Sound like you're listening to an aircraft way over yonder. You know, you'll hear a jet before you can find him up there, which is actually he's passed because you're hearing the sound. It takes a while to get to you. But we were looking up at a particular star cluster, talking about when we saw the shooting star come in, it was green, which means it was iron based. And it was burning up. And after like so many seconds, you started hearing it. And after it burned up and dissipated and was gone, we kept hearing the sound for a few seconds afterwards. Just an awesome moment. Tom's Outdoors. Oh, yeah. Slocum, Alabama. Good tomatoes. Hog Rotten talking about dog food plant. Cloth factory. There was a chemical that they used in making cloth. And the smell, this chemical smell is just unbelievable. It burns your nose. You can feel it in your lungs. Your nose goes to running instantaneously. Your eyes go just burning, you know. And people who worked in that plant said it took about a week or two for you to get acclimated to it. But my dad was a trucker, and I remember us pulling up to the White Knight building, and that's where it was. When they opened that back door, it just took your breath away. I can remember gagging. It was so bad. And I said, oh, you get used to it after a week. You quit getting sick. And it was a sizing they put into the cloth, making the cloth. And it's called White Knight Manufacturing back in them days. So I probably smelt a dog food plant, but I'll never forget that cotton factory. That was bad. Hello, Washburn Billy. Good evening. No, Mike Bolton, that's not a bad idea. Marking territory will help spook him off. They do respect territory of a bigger predator. So, oh, good. One of them see-through skeeter tents. Uh, Kaufman's in Sampson, that military surplus place I go to, got in a bunch of the military surplus one-person tents, the pop-up modern tent, not the old canvas shelter have, but the modern pop-up that's got the skeeter on it and then the cover that goes over it for rain. They got in a bunch of those not long ago. And I was down there talking to them. They asked me, could I figure out how this thing goes together? I want to put one on display because they had the poles and has it work. I figured out it's just the same length pole. It just forms an X and set it up for them. But yeah, they've got them in. I'm probably going to need to go down there and do a video for them to show some of the stuff they've got in over the months. Jackie Burns, I didn't have any busted pipes. I kept my water dripping the whole time, just in case. In fact, we're doing some remodeling in the kitchen, and I had planned on that during that time period. I was going to be pulling the kitchen sink out and just go from scratch all over again. The sink itself is going to be put in, but I'm putting in new faucets, new fixtures, reseal everything up, and etc. And I didn't want to turn off the water to the house for 4 or 5 hours while I was doing that for that very reason. I want to keep the water running. So during this warm spell, I'm going to try to get in there and get that sink changed out before it turns back that kind of cold. Task Force Tyler, hello. 133. I have two cots. I have one of the standard ones like you get at Walmart that folds out with a little thin mattress in it. No. Excuse me. Yeah. It folds out, but it doesn't have the mattress, but it's like the Army cot. It's just short. And then I have a compact one that opens up. And somewhere in the storage building, I've got a U.S. Army cot that I can utilize. Usually the wife uses the cots. When we go, I would set up a canvas tent, my little Boy Scout tent, and let her sleep in that. I'm sleeping in a hammock. But my plan for the hot tent is to use my hammock in it. Gotcha. I understand. It could be, Sean. I think what Sean, the guy that brings firewood in my gathering, I think that's what he was using. One very similar to that. They may have, Jackie. They Kaufman's military surplus down there in Sampson. One of them singles will work just fine for a single person. All right, what's my favorite used gear site other than local? Sportsman's Guide. I'll ghost them quite a bit because you never know what's going to pop up. If you're looking for cold weather stuff, wait till like May. And a lot of that stuff gets dumped at a really good price because it didn't sell. Same thing, if you're looking for summer stuff, start looking in like February because they're clearing out last year's summer stuff and they're getting the new stuff in. And it's past Christmas, so all them big sales is over. They don't slash the price until after Christmas because, etc. It's like I tell people, if you're wanting a kayak and you like the kayaks that Walmart carry, look in September, October. Just go find whatever one you like on the website and keep an eye on it. Don't order it because here's what happens. Somewhere between the end of September and beginning of November, in October, we're saying, I have seen it be the first week of November before. Walmart will suddenly slash the price of kayaks, not in the store, online, because kayaks take up a huge amount of room in a warehouse. And you can't stack much on them because what they are, you know. And so when the Christmas stuff starts arriving from China, they slash the price. And so I have seen the $500 fishing kayak drop down to $199 before. But it's only going to be that way 2 or 3 days. Because what they do is they've got like so many, a limit on their end. They're not going to say that, to clear out the warehouses. So many are gone. They kill it. And a lot of your canoe liveries and canoe rental places ghost Walmart site watching for that. So when that price drops, they jump and they buy 20 or 30 or whatever, resupplying their stuff. And that's reading that thing will drop like a rock. So I have seen the price drop down, be down 24 hours, maybe not quite 48, and then go right back up to full price. So you got to start watching it. So if you're looking for a kayak, that's the time to keep an eye out for it to suddenly drop. Always buy in the off season. Jackie Kaufman Surplus is in Samson, Alabama. Okay. They do have the website. They don't do a lot with it. It's just better to call them up on the phone. Their phone number's on the site. And I want to say, but double check me, 334-898-1770, I believe, is the correct phone number for them. And call them during the day, like from 10 o'clock in the morning to about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and tell them I sent you, and they'll help you out as best they can. They're good. They'll ship anywhere in the country. And you just tell them what you're looking for. They normally have got a real good idea about what they got in the house. So, yes, I was correct. 334-898-1770 is the number. And just tell them what you're looking for. And they'll tell you, and they'll ship anywhere. MS Sleep Systems, they had them for like $150. That's where I got mine. Polypropylene long handles, the used ones are $10 for a top or a bottom, you know. And tell them you, Blackie sent me, could you pick me out the best you can find? And they'll hand pick it for you and give you the best of that. So you don't get one that's got this waffle pattern on the butt where it was wedged up against a hot dryer or something. But, you know, they're good people. I've actually got a couple of, I was sent by Scott, who is Choir Boys, a knife that I'm playing with now and looking at, and it's a, I ain't got my good glasses on, Rose Craft knife. And it's a really cool folding pocket knife. I took it out and played with it the other day and put it back. But it's a really cool little pocket knife. Got a little screwdriver tip on there, a little chipper. Scott's more into the tactical knives. But it's a very nice knife. So anyway, after I've got a little bit more time with this, I never like to say something until I've actually worked with one a while. And I've played with this one a little bit, but I want to have a little bit more time before I give my full opinion on it. But, yeah. What kind of knife would you like to see evaluated? Because you know how much I love my WC knives. I have no problem playing with a knife and giving you my fair opinion, but you got a knife style you want me to look at? Let me know. The aroma of Tacoma. My sister lived in Tacoma, Washington for 5 years. I've heard stories about Tacoma, Washington. Oh yeah, Mike, the old U.S. Cavalry catalogs. Yeah, back in the 80s, it was Ranger Joe's in Columbus, Georgia. There was the U.S. Cav catalog. There was another one that was a part of Soldier of Fortune magazine, some thing along in that you could get all kinds of surplus and stuff. And then there was the Army Navy surplus catalog. There's one more. I'd get them things. That was Christmas Day, boy. You just had to find the new latest, fun to play with tools. Steve Fisher. The Roscoe version is kind of a hit or miss, to be honest. I've had one or two in my hand that looked as good as an issue. And at the same time, I've seen some that had some issues. So it's really a spot on. My recommendation is if you're going to get one, make sure it's someplace you can return if it ain't right. Try the thing on, make sure it's right. Check every seam, everything. If it looks good, seems to be well put together, keep it. If not, package that sucker back up and say, send me my money or send me another one because this one's got problems. The issue ones are you just going to have to find them at thrift stores and etc. I have been shocked at the price of some of them things popping up on M65 field jackets on eBay and something. I saw one the other day that the guy won like $140 something for a brand new, never issued, still in the old packaging, like you get issue it. So just wow. I love mine, as you know, but if I ever find a really good source, I will point it out to everybody. That's been a very successful videos for me. And I had, how many people contacted me and said, I didn't know you could make a pillow out of it. That's one of the first things I learned was how to fold and everything, roll it up and put the hood around, make a pillow. So I had a lot of guys that I was in the Army for so many years that I never saw this thing turn into a pillow. Why didn't they teach this? Because I'd take the liner out and wear the liner to bed, take the jacket, make my pillow, and then pull up your sleeping bag or your poncho with a poncho liner in it, trying to stay warm. And then the next day, because your head's on it, your jacket's halfway warm when you get up in the morning. So when you put the jacket back on, you ain't got to take the liner off. You can just put the jacket on over the liner and just when you get a chance, button it back in. A lot of people brought that up. Brigade Quartermaster. There you go. That's correct. That was that name I couldn't remember. Clyde. Oh, yeah, the Alaskan Scout. Anything by WC. I'm going to a private invitational 2 weeks from now, 13th, 14th, and 15th. And it's just where the person that's putting it on is a limited area, limited space. And so he's inviting just certain people because there just ain't enough room for a big crowd. And me and William are going to be together. It's going to be the first time I've got to see William in over a year, maybe 2 years. And so he's done said he's bringing a bag of knives, and we're going to sit and talk knives. So you can bet that's going to be some video I'm going to be putting up. I'm hoping to get to see some of these new. The Mad Knife Wizard. I love him to death. He makes such a fantastic knife. And when we were working on knife designs, giving him feedback and stuff like that, and he'd send me prototypes, me and Dan Lutz, a couple others, and we'd do tests for him, send him back feedback and stuff like that. Or we'd be talking about a design and he wants to do this, do that. And here's his basic design. Now, what do you think of it? Well, I'd like a little more of this, whatever. And we'd be all talking in a private chat thing. And suddenly we would just get quiet. Me and Dan Lutz would still be talking. And like 30, 40 minutes, William would come back to the thing and put a picture up and go, how about this? He just went in the shop and made one. Because we point out this and I said this and Dan said that, and he just go out there and grab steel and go grinding. And next thing you know, he goes, how about this? So I started calling him the Mad Knife Wizard. You don't leave him alone 5 minutes, he'll make a new one. Everybody else is always worried about, oh, well, I don't want to have to invest that. That man will burn up a pickup truck worth of high dollar steel to get his design right, where it's right for him. He is not scared to sit there and grind on some steel and make it happen. And that is so rare today. That's an artisan. That's not a maker. That's an artisan, because he is not scared to waste good, expensive steel trying to work out a design. And most of those guys, they'll start out with cheap stuff. They'll work out the shape and all like that in a computer, and they'll get it cut out, and then they'll make it out of something cheap like 440 stainless just to make sure how it's going to fit, and etc. And then they'll go make a nice one. He'll grab the good stuff and make it right then. And I told him there must be a 18-wheeler pile behind his shop of designs that didn't make it. So one day I'm going to try this year. I'm going to go to spend a day or two over with William in Texas and do some video of his shop and everything and his designs. We just got to work it out where the time he can afford it, etc. And he said, come out, and if we can work it out, me and him will go camp together a day or two on a lake he knows. I'm hoping to get to do that. I'd really, really enjoy doing that. Through failure, we succeed. Great name. I can't believe the price of H&R shotguns now. Yeah. After they got put out of business, and I think it's Henry now makes single shot shotguns. They're like $200. But luckily, you can still go around the pawn shops and stuff and still pick up H&Rs and stuff. Gunbroker and all, they're going for the big money. But if you'll look around the gun shops, look around the pawn shops, quite often you can still scare up an H&R for a reasonable price. And there's so little to go wrong with it. And I tell people, if you pick up one, is it good? Number one, hit the button and break it open. Does it break open smoothly? Number two, with it closed, grab the grip, grab the barrel, and try to pull apart. Does the gap where it closes get bigger? That means the pin is worn on the hinge. That can be replaced. Look down the bore. Is it pitted, cracked, scratches? Does it look like something hinky has been going on here? Pass on it. Bore looks okay? Great. Pull the trigger and push the hammer forward. This will make the firing pin protrude out. Does it have a good firing pin? Is it nice and smooth, or is it chipped, cracked, jagged? That can cause problems. Does it not protrude? Broken firing pin. Again, that can be replaced. Slowly cock the hammer, come all the way to full cock, go all the way to let it off, bring it to full cock, grab it and wiggle it. So if it goes, you're holding it. Remember, it's got a transfer bar, at least the more modern ones. Some of the early ones didn't because they're so far back. But check that, and then holding on to the hammer, don't touch trigger, try to push it forward and see if it slips off, which can be a broken cylinder. Again, can be replaceable. There's only a handful of parts in that thing, and all of them are available. So yeah, if you can find one that's in decent enough shape, don't worry what the wood looks like. You can clean that up. And some best ones are, so somebody got it for their kid and he held on to it for 5 years, never hardly ever shot it. Now he wants a pump and he don't want that slow poke single shot. And you can pick that up. That's how I got mine. It's a youth model barrel, but it's a full size adult stock on it. So it makes a nice compact package, which is perfect for carrying in the woods. And I added a sling to mine, and makes it very, very usable in the woods as a close support weapon for hunting, squirrels, rabbits. Got a modified barrel in it. At the same time, I can take big game with it at close range. And again, I'm in such thick woods down here. 25, 30-yard shots on deer out of a stand is not out of reasonable. So it could easily do that. Stephen Cantrell, well, thank you very much. Marcus, what do I think about stagecoach guns? I like them. And in fact, I hunted with mine which had been a present from Bear in the recent squirrel hunt we went on. I do find if I have them laying side to side, would I grab the single shot or would I grab the double for a woods gun? I would grab the single because it's lighter. Doubles are heavier. It's great having that second shot, but I think they're good guns and usable. But of the two, I would prefer the single shot. Now, having said that, I've got a lot of time with a double looking for quail or something that's fast. So you don't have time to pop it open. You've got to be boom, boom, or you're going to miss. If your first shot doesn't tag, you got just a nanosecond before it's out of range. That's where you got to go to the second barrel. And I prefer a double barrel that has like a open and a modified, or a full choke and a modified. And I want to know the difference, which is which. Because if it is a modified, it's going to be first. That means the bird's going to be right here at me. It's close range. I want the modified. If I've missed, it's automatically further out, and now I want the full choke for long range. See? So modified to full. I don't want to start with the full because I'll blow him to pieces up close. And then once he goes past point X, the modified's really not in the zone. So I want to stagger it that way. You just got to train the fingers to which trigger to pull first. Worm Wrangler, I'm glad you're happy with. Man, we were so sweating that. They're really good blankets. They really, really are. And every time they had got these blankets before, there had been no trouble. And so we went to do this order, and it just COVID. And so they kept telling us, they're coming, they're coming. They're in the mill. Oh, something broke down. It slowed us up, and we were sweating. It took nearly a year to get them things in. But I'm very glad. I'm very happy with the quality of them, and they're a good blanket. Team Lotus, I got lucky. I have a good supply of black powder. I was part of a black powder club that everybody left the club, and by default, I ended up with the powder of the club. So I've got probably a 5-year supply for me. And then the part of the shooting club that I'm part of over here, there was a member that had about 80 years old that had decided to get rid of all of his stuff. And I was approached to take 16 pounds of GoEx and 3F. And so me and another person split that. So I ended up with 8 pounds of GoEx. So I'm doing pretty good. It is kind of scarce right now, but GoEx has been bought. They're rebuilding. I don't see black powder ever stopping being available, especially not being manufactured, because there's so many military contracts that still use black powder and propellants and naval shells, artillery, and everything else. It's still used in modern ordnance in certain things as a component. So therefore, it's not going to go out. Whether or not they allow us to get it is the question. So I don't know, just kind of look around. Mid-South Shooter Supply is someplace I've been lucky to find some caps and some stuff all along. And if you've got a local gun shop that carries reloading supplies, talk to them about, hey, I need some black powder. Are they willing to do it? And what's a minimum order? And if it's, what local clubs have done down here is they found out that a minimum order was like 50 pounds. And so he said, okay, I'll take 5. And then he went through the local black powder group and said, okay, who wants? They're this much per pound, and we have this many available. How many do you want? And just do it as a group. And a lot of times you get a gun shop willing to do that because they got the money. Look, we'll put the money up front. You order it under your license, get it in, and we'll divide it up. And sometimes you can get a gun shop to go ahead and do that because they ain't out of pocket money that way, and they can order it and get them in. And a lot of clubs will put in orders. I've been part of clubs before that would put in orders from the manufacturers and go pick it up. So Good luck to you. I know it can be kind of tough. Yeah, Powder Valley, Shinson, and Swiss. I want to work with some of that Swiss. I've shot it a little, but not in a couple of years. And I would like to. None of my gun shows ever have black powder at it. And if I didn't have such a good supply of my GoX and etc., I think I'm gonna get me some Swiss just to try it out. I hear so many good things about it. Wow, nickel receiver. They a lot of those were nickel plated back in the day for rust resistance because there's still a lot of black powder shells, and so it might be worth something in the long run. Mike Bolton used number 9 in a 50 cal. Yep, I've done that before too, for up close and stuff. Yeah. In fact, I recently got a New England Firearms 12 gauge, Thompson Center New Englander 12 gauge, unfired. It was gifted to me by someone local, and because they've got a couple of them, and he said, "I want you to teach me how to load this thing. I'll give it to you." And so I've been gathering up the components, and I've got a mold on the way right now to make up the big pumpkin ball, the 69 caliber 12 gauge pumpkin ball, as opposed to using a slug. And so there's going to be a muzzleloading shotgun video, about 3 videos coming, probably end of January, something like that. I'm going to do it as a little mini series of doing 3 of them. And I'm also, like I've talked about, I've got me a I want to say Reddit, but I'm probably wrong. But it's the other video service. I think it's Reddit. I went and set up over there, and I'm going to be doing a lot more of my gun related stuff and putting it over there. That way I could do what I really want to say, and then I'll edit it down to YouTube friendly and post that onto YouTube so you can see it. And if you want the rest of it, you can go to that side over there and see the whole video. Because there are things that I would love to talk about and discuss that are not YouTube friendly. And so I have to kind of play by the rules of YouTube. And this is their house. You got to respect their rules, but don't mean I can't go to somebody else's house at the same time. So that's where I'm looking at that. I'm trying to get that rolling this coming year to get that going. And I'm hoping by the end of the year to have the rough draft of my book ready. And we shall see. Once I get the rough draft ready, and I'm getting ready to do self-publishing, and that's one thing William Collins is going to help me with. A lot of people know him for the knife, but he's actually a published author. He's had a couple of books. So he knows how to do self-publishing, and he's going to walk me through all them steps. And so once I get my book ready to come out, I will announce it on here. And any of my fans that want to get in on it first, I'll give them a heads up before I go anywhere else, because you guys have supported me. I really want to share with you guys first if I can. And so that'll be coming. So I got a lot of things coming in the coming year. That's the idea. We're going to try to do new stuff. Jackie, you ain't got to repay me. Pass it on to somebody else. My job is to pass on what's stuck up in here after a lifetime of learning it from old woodsmen and hunters and fishermen and little old ladies on a creek bank with a cane pole and a coffee can of worms. I mean, I learned, and it's my job to pass it on. Now it's your job to pass it on. Whenever I'm gone, pass it on. So that's how you repay me. Pass it on. Grandkids, friend of the families, whatever. Share as much as you can. That's the ultimate goal, is to share. Thank you, Scott. Garen, no, I have not. I have got some, actually. I was given some by a follower of mine who came to my event who was making up these survival kits. And he had the I want to say glucose, but I'm wrong. But the liquid and the stuff, the powder, pomegranate, not pomegranate, permanganate, correct, permanganate powder together to get it to ignite. Now, I haven't played with that. I'm familiar with the concept of it. And I've done something else similar, which was the magic powder and brake fluid will do the same thing. And in fact, I used that in back in Boy Scouts for something for Order of the Arrow to make a big flashy ignition for their big council fire, their big gathering, was the magic powder and brake fluid. And I got a young man whose name was Mike, and he went around and did the thing, and he threw the stuff in the can like he was supposed to. And I told him, you start a timer when you throw it in. You got to do everything you do so that at about 40 seconds, I want you standing between those two pyres, holding up your staff over your head, and they'll ignite. And it was just one of them perfect moments. They both ignited. It was like a Roman candle blowing straight up. And they were going like 10 feet high, Roman candles blowing up through it. And big old huge soap bonfire ignited and everything. Scared the bejesus out of all the moms and them sitting in the audience out there, because like whoosh, everybody jumped, you know. Oh, Marcus, about short barrel stage shotguns. Yeah, they're great for close range. Defense, fantastic. Hunting, things like quail or something right here at you real quick, great for that. But you're limited to about 25 yards because most of those have just cylinder bore chokes. They don't have any chokes to straight to. And so you're, for a hunting gun, ultra close range stuff, they're great for that. And that's what they're good. They really excel at, because they throw a big, wide pattern right here, right now. And that's what you need for small, fast birds, because a quail ain't, that big, and only one pellet's enough to take them out. So you want a big, wide open pattern that will only hit him with one or two pellets and put him down. For home defense, fantastic at close range, for what it's designed for. But as a long range gun, nope. You committed yourself. That's the reason they said, riding shotgun. That was the guy up on the wagon with the short barrel, close range. Very devastating at close range, but close range. Mossberg 500, really good guns. Mossberg 500 and the Remington 870 are both bought by the Marine Corps interchangeably for combat duty. So they got to be pretty good if those are being used. Through failure, yeah, I have. In fact, that's why I got coming that round ball to use in it. I'm using it in a muzzleloading gun, but would I use it in a standard shotgun? Yeah. You understanding in a modern shotgun shell, you're talking about payload. Okay. So this is 1 ounce of number 6s. This is 1 ounce of number 4s. This is a 1 ounce slug. This is 1 ounce of double aught buckshot. It's the same weight, depending on whatever kind of pellet it is, but it's the same weight. So the powder is set up to propel that weight at this speed. Think about like the catapult on an aircraft carrier. You got to tell it what the aircraft is. So when you roll up a F-18 Hornet and it hooks to it, it knows how heavy it is and how much oomph to sling it off the deck at this speed. That's how a shotgun shell works. It's the weight. Doesn't matter what size the pellet is, it's the weight total of the pellets. And so can you use a round ball in a shotgun shell? Absolutely. It does just fine. In fact, they loaded them for years. They called them pumpkin balls. And I actually prefer it over a lot of slugs because slugs, being long and cylindrical, if there isn't anything to stable it, it kind of pitches and yaws. You watch it doing like that going down the thing. How Flandermouse does a really good channel, and he does a lot with shotguns and high-speed cameras. And he was showing the Lee keyed 12-gauge shotgun shell, which means it's got the hollow base with a bar across it. And what happens is upon firing, the wad kind of pushes up in that base and may stick to the actual slug. So you see these wild gyrating as it goes off, and it, the 7/8 work better. In my own personal experience of making slugs, I had a shotgun slug mold, several of them for a while, and I kept coming back to a round ball because round ball could be more consistent than the slug was. And so I'm going to be covering that in depth about using them for the big ones. Mike Bolton, that's correct. It depends on the gun, etc. The pressure required to shove it out, again, is it weight. Which generates more pressure? 1 ounce of number 8s on a bare, not using a shot cup, but just like a cardboard wad, or a 1 ounce slug? Which creates more pressure? The shot does. Why? All them stacked up round balls, the shot, when you ram the pressure in the back, they all want to roll out of the way and push pressure on the walls like a brake home. So they're generating greater pressure against the wall than the slug, which doesn't deform and go to squeezing out. So it actually generates more pressure with the shot as opposed to the solid ball. Outward pressure. Garrett, yeah, shooting 22 short CB BB cats, man, them things were great in the garden or rat killing. You're on a farm and you got a lot of feed and stuff in a barn. Yeah, that was one of the youngins' jobs, was take the 22 with a little bit of short or a CB cap or a BB cap and shoot rats, stuff like that. Worked real well for it. Doesn't damage a whole lot. Just make sure you weren't blowing holes in the walls. BB gun, I can remember one of my young cousins who was, I think he was about 7, and his granddaddy bought him a more powerful than a Daisy Red Ryder BB gun, so this kid could go shoot doves and stuff that were nesting in the top of his barn. They'd get in and they were up there in the rafters, and he'd come in and shoot them with that BB gun. Well, the BB would not penetrate that heavy tin roof. Man, that heavy tin was that old World War II tin building construction tin. It'd stop a 38. So that pellet would just, if he missed it, it'd tink. But at the same time, he could cleanly drop doves. And I've seen that kid get 7, 8, 9 doves in one night out of that barn with a flashlight and a BB gun. But of course those got cleaned and got ate but it's keeping the stuff from eating up our feed and causing trouble, and at the same time we're providing for the family. A win-win. Ken, thank you very much for posting that, and I hope to see you there. Harold, good evening. Tennessee Smoky, good evening. Thank you very much. I do my best. John Kennedy, yes, sir, I have used cut shells. I have seen them perform personally very effectively. I can honestly say that I believe the first time I ever saw it was I was 8. And I was going hunting with my granddaddy. We called it hunting. What we were really doing was going to go fishing down there at a friend of his pond. But he told me I could bring my shotgun for squirrels, what it was in case of snakes. And it was early October, something like that, still warm. And I had that single shot 20 that my great granddaddy had handed down to me. And we're coming up that dirt road down there in Geneva County, a little bit of a hilly through them woods. And this young lady came out, and she knew my granddaddy's truck, knew he was, went to flagging him down. And whenever we pulled up, she said, Mr. Hobby, you got to kill him. You got to kill him. And what it is, I had a mule that was old, senile, couldn't be used for anything really, just put it out to pasture. And it had gone nuts, senile, whatever you want to call it. And it had killed a hog. It got into the pen and just stomped a hog to death, and was now chasing around in this small pen, which I say small, probably about 150 foot across, holding pen, trying to kill the small pigs. And where we're at in the dirt road to where the mule was at was probably about 40 yards as he's running around in there, and he's braying, he's mad at everything. She told my granddad, said, Mr. Hobby, you got to kill him. You got to kill him. And granddaddy said, what's going on? She told him, said, doesn't kill this, doesn't kill him. The daddy's gone. We got to kill him. He's going to destroy all the pigs. And so my granddad just reached over and took my shotgun away from me, popped, did like that. And I handed him a shell. He pulled out his pocket knife. He went around the shell and made a cut shell, slid it in the shotgun, closed it, cocked it, and got the barrel pointing up and said, are you sure? Yes, sir. You're sure you want me to kill it? Yes. He, wow, hit the mule inside the head, turned him off like a light switch, 40 yards. Then hand me back my gun, said, take the shell out of it. It's like, he was deadly with a cut shell. Wax slugs or cut shell, 75 yards. He was deadly. Jared, the Nighthawks, that the test run has been shipped out. My personal Nighthawk is on the way because all of them, that first one went to the people that paid. So I ain't even got mine yet, but mine is on the way right now, and I should have it this coming week. And so I will then be doing video and stuff with the Nighthawk. And I'm hoping it get here in time for me to do my overnight with my hot tent. I'll use my Nighthawk for that. Load it up and go down there and enjoy it. And but I will definitely be carrying the Nighthawk to the invitational camp out 13th, 14th, 15th. And after that, we'll probably be announcing the next run of the Nighthawks. And I definitely will have that by the end of January. I'll be doing an announcement for the full run. I'm still getting some feedback. I already got feedback from 2 people. They've got their Nighthawks and give me some feedback on it. So, like I said, I want to hear back from them, make sure everything's good, everybody's happy. If there's something we need to change, we want to know it now before we go to full production. And so, end of January, in there roughly, is we'll do a run of the Nighthawks. Scott, the Maverick 88. The Maverick 88 is simply the Mossberg 500 with the safety moved. How that came about is when Mossberg wanted to bring out a cheaper gun. Instead of having blued with a wood stock and a wood foregrip, they wanted to go to a synthetic stock, i.e. plastic, with a baked on finish paint finish. Well, you know what happens is you bring that, and it'd be a cheaper price point because they don't have to finish it so fancy, because it's going to be painted. And they didn't have to fit a wooden stock because it's a synthetic stock to put onto it. So the price could be distinctly cheaper. Well, the problem with it was, what happened is it come in there and old redneck like me going, I want that gun, the wooden one, at this price because it's the same gun. No, it's not. No, it's the same gun, and I want that gun at the same price. I want blued and I want wood. I don't want the plastic one. I want the blued and the wood. So they moved the safety from up here at the grip down to behind the trigger guard. That's the difference. All of the parts interchange. So you can get a Mossberg 500 and drop an 88 barrel in it. It's the same receiver and everything. That's the only difference. So they're good guns. Ooh, Mitch, what's your favorite slip joint pocket knife? Ooh, dude. I have a tub of knives. I love pocket knives. I just love pocket knives. And I keep up here in my area underneath my computer. I keep a Western Barlow. I keep a Saber Granddaddy Barlow. And I've got a Rough Rider, I think they call it Select. It's a little fancier, little finer fit and polish and everything, but just a handy one. I love all of them. You know, if you put my feet to the fire and say I could only pick one, it would probably be a two-blade trapper, because of all the experience with cleaning small game and deer and everything else. One. So if it was going to be a slip joint, one of them, you know, if you put my feet to the fire. For a daily carry, I love a Barlow, or I'm an old guy, I use the plain ones. And so all of the above. But, and I know this is going to sound funny, but to you knife guys, you're going to know what I'm saying. You feel guilty you hadn't carried one in a while. You know, these stay up here all the time. But, and of course, my Swiss Army knife, my Fieldmaster, is a daily carry. But there's usually another one thrown in the other pocket. And so it will be my case, or it'll be a Queen Steel, or it'll be a Saber, or it'll be whatever, just nostalgia, or just that particular design. Or maybe I'm about to do some sort of project that blade would be the perfect blade. And I got a big old tub over here on the shelf. And I just open up and pull it out, and I'll carry that for 2 or 3 days. My Buck 110, you know, my K-bars. It's just one of them things, dude. I mean, I've always got a pocket knife on me, and I love to just sit there, and that's my fiddle stick, you know. Everybody talks about fidget spinners. No, pocket knife and a stick will do just fine for me. Nighthawk. Nighthawk is a rucksack. It's a knapsack. So I have my Blackhawk, which is my Blackbird. Wow, sorry. Helicopter's Blackhawk. Blackbird is my haversack. The scale up rucksack, small rucksack, it's a knapsack. That anchors to and becomes the top flap for it. And it's just the Nighthawk is just a big bag for carrying your camping supplies for like a overnight or 2-day camp out in fairly good weather where you don't have to have real big bulky clothing or whatever. And it attaches a set of Alice pack straps to it to carry it. The concept was that, as you realize, when you go camping and you hike in or you walk in, the bulk of your camp fits in the big sack. Now, once you get to camp and you unload it, the sack is pretty much empty. It's 90% empty. And I didn't want to take a haversack and carry it on my hip and then that on my back. And although I set up the Blackbird to be able to ride as a hip bag and so free me up for carrying a rucksack. This way it rides on the rucksack kind of like a top flap. So I still got full access to it. And then once I get to my campsite and I set up my camp, I just unhook and pull my haversack off of the Nighthawk. The Nighthawk gets hooked to a tree, and it's got my food, my cooking supplies, some extra socks in it, and my haversack goes on my shoulder for me to scout around camp. So it's a 2-piece system I kind of come up with to kind of speed things up and streamline stuff. So that's what that is. I know I've done quite a few videos on it. Mike Bolton, shotgun powder is measured in grams. Correct. That's because that's hanging over all the way from the 1500s, 1400s. It's when guns first started doing it, and they were discussing powder, how to measure, and there was a liquid measure that was known called a dram that is roughly 27 and a half grains. And so it stuck all the way to modern times in shotguns. And it's just a way to say how much powder to put into it. I always just, when it was just me, I'd round up. Just remember 30 grains. So 2 drams is 60, just underneath 60 actually. And 4 drams be 120, which I had a double barrel 10 gauge back in them days. And it was proof to 6 dram, but I rarely loaded it above, 2 or 3 unless I was going for something big and heavy. And then I'd put up to 5 in it. And so it just, since you're loading every round independently, you could shift on the fly, going from a light squirrel load all the way to a heavy deer thumper, just by how you loaded it on the spot. And drams of powder is the way they officially measure it, which I just, like I said, for me personally, I just rounded up to 30 grains. And so a light load is 2.5 dram, which I'll eliminate the half because I rounded up, remember? And so it would be 60 grains, roughly. I think it's like 62 anyway. And then a 3 dram load would be 90, which is supposed to be like 82, I think. And so it's just a way of measuring. Yeah, Garen, shotgun loads are dram equivalent in modern shells. It's because black powder and smokeless powder perform identical in shotguns. Hold on. Don't jump up and down, start hollering. It's effectively the same because the smokeless is loaded to the black powder ballistic performance. If you load more powerful, you just blow patterns. It makes big holes in the middle of the pattern. You got a donut. So there's a certain balance that has to be maintained. So the black powder load of 2 drams, 1 ounce of shot, they do the same in smokeless. They just say it's equivalent. Mitch, yes, I have. Everybody knew I carried a pocket knife. Everybody knew I used my pocket knife. Now, we were issued box cutters at Walmart, but there were just some jobs my pocket knife was a superior choice, safer choice, really. And so I've had more than that. At the time that I was the guy running sporting goods, and we had ARs and a lot of ammunition and everything else, and I had the head of AP, which is like their asset protection and etc. And he said he didn't like the fact I had a Swiss Army knife on me. We're in the break room, and I said, why? He said, because, I don't want you carrying a weapon up here. You give me a key to a gun room with 15 ARs and 5,000 rounds of 5.56 ammo, and you're worried that I'm going to wig out with a pocket knife? If this old dude wigs out, we'll be on CNN, and it won't be with a pocket knife. So don't worry, the pocket knife's fine. King Zambu, good. Glad you liked it. I'm thinking about doing another one. I've got the, sorry guys. He's commenting about me on my percussion revolver of showing how to antique. And I've got a Uberti Colt 71, which is the 45 long Colt that looks like he took an 1860 Army and turned it into a cartridge gun with the ejector and everything, loading gate. And it's still in blue and everything. And I'm thinking about doing that one. And instead of stripping it like I did in the video, I'm going to do it the other way, where I use a little bit of steel wool and sand it down to fade it where it looks like it's just barely got any finish left on it, and add some dark accents and etc., and see if I can do that. I haven't done one like that in a long time. Years ago, I did a 1911 that way. I antiqued a 1911 and made it look like an old war horse that'd been there forever and had these old pair of grips. It started with a pair of grips, guys. Back when I was doing gunsmithing, this guy brought in this pair of grips that just looked like they had been there. And he wanted a new set of grips, and I got him a new set of grips, and I kept those old grips. And I had a brand new Colt Series 70, and I wanted that to go with those grips, so I antiqued and downed it a little bit to make it look like an old World War I type 1911, and put the correct trigger in it, etc., to make it look like the old 1911, not a 1911 A1, a 1911, the flat back strap and everything else. And did a few cosmetics and put that set of grips on it, and I sanded it down with oil and steel wool to fade it down way on down. I put a little browning and let it rest in a couple places and carted it off and everything. Man, that thing looked like it had just stepped out of history. It was great. Anonymous, what you're seeing there, those little rings going all the way around, are a whole lubrication that is swaged. 22s are swaged, which what in English means it's a mold, and they take the lead and put it under such pressure it flows like toothpaste without being melted, and it fills that void up perfectly. And then when the mold lets go, those indentions are left, and then it goes through a process where it gets lubrication put on it, and it's the whole lubrication. Those driving bands, as they're going down the rifling, that's for those pockets, those knurlings, to hold lubrication and keep it from letting up the bore. Yes, John brought the skunk is a member of the weasel family. Mike Bolton, it depends on somewhere in the 1200. Anywhere from 1150 to 1300 is usually where you get most shotgun loads running at. Any faster than that, if you try to push it, like I said, you blow it, because the pressure coming out just pushes the shot out of the way and you get a donut. So you can get faster, but your groups go way down and you're not able to hit anything. There's a fine balance between speed and hitting, and that's something that guys that do the things like duck and stuff like that, they want speed, because they want it to hit him now, because he's at the perfect position to hit. And you got to really play it. And turkey's the same way. I've seen guys want to hot load turkey loads, trying to get it just slap all that harder. And yes, you can accelerate the speed. I have seen chronograph 1,400 feet per second out of a 3.5-inch shell, but I'm here to tell you the pattern. You could drive an 18-wheeler through that pattern. He could not get a pattern. Oh, the individual pellets were smacking like a sledgehammer, but there's no uniformity to it, because that gas coming out just goes wah, and it just scatters the shot. And so there's a speed. There seems to be a limiter. You go past that, it just falls apart. Dennis, Green River knives can be very good knives, and also the old hickory knives can be good knives, great camp knives. I have cleaned a lot of deer with an old hickory butcher knife. Yeah, they're thin, but you look how many videos are on YouTube of people taking those and turning them into bushcraft knives. I've seen a lot of guys do that, and they do a good job. It's a good steel, holds an edge well, and is easy to resharpen, as long as you don't roll the edge to begin with. I have had a lot of kitchen knives come to me where somebody thought they knew what they were doing, and they got on a rod and they went to doing all this stuff, and they just roll the edge to where it's it is sharp as an icicle. I mean, it's round. And I take a file and get flat on it and go away from it and cut that edge so that the edge cuts back about say a 16th from the actual edge. So that's the angle I want. So as I'm filing, I'm taking like a 16th back is where I'm scratching the full length, both sides, to get that edge start. Because if it's rounded like that, you got to get that again to start, and then go back to actually counting your strokes, nice long and flat, even strokes. And they will hold an edge real well and do a good job in the field. Damon, don't worry. I'm around. Just get up with me whenever it's good for you. Yeah, feel good. Sharp as a bowling ball. You're right. And I have had a lot of them that way. Delton Bray, I'll do it. And Happy New Year. I got a really good knife several times, but this one time I remember was a GI came in, and he said he needed a pocket knife because he was going to do something. He needed another pocket knife. This one's no good. And he pulls out about a $300 custom lockback pocket knife. That was a name that I recognized. I said, "What's wrong with it?" He said, "Don't cut no more." And he hands it to me, and it's dull as butter. I went, "Okay." And so he picked out a $50 knife. He got the knife, and I said, "What you gonna do with this one?" So honestly, I'm probably gonna pitch it. I said, "I'll give you $20 for it." He went, "Really?" "Yeah, I'll give you $20 for it." So I paid him $20 for that knife, and I brought it home and I sharpened it. That's all it needed was sharpening. I put the thing on eBay and it sold for $250. You know, he didn't know how to sharpen a knife. I love instances like that. You know, how many times have I got a gun showed up in a paper sack where they took it apart and couldn't figure out how to put it back together? Or I've got a kitchen knife that was a Christmas present for a couple of my close friends, extended family. For a couple of years there was, the wife would get a thing in her stocking saying, Christmas stocking, saying that after Christmas to bring all of the knives to Blackie, that Blackie was going to sharpen all of her kitchen knives. And I would just set up all of my equipment and sharpen all your kitchen knives and put them back in a shoebox or whatever and give them back to you. Because so many people did not know and didn't want to learn how to sharpen a knife. So, well, guys, that's an hour and 52. I guess about time for us to wind it up. And everyone, Happy New Year. Thank you very much for being so supportive of it. And I would really, really ask you to do me a favor. Find some youngin' that has an interest in the outdoors and encourage them all you can. Share as much knowledge as you can with the young. Pass it on, because they may need this stuff one day. Once again, guys, Happy New Year. Thank you very much for tuning in. We'll do another one next week. So till next time, I'm Blackie, wishing you safe journeys. Have a good night, guys.